Yes, we are now online.
You.
Nice. So, should I start?
Maybe. Okay.
Okay, so I think we are live.
It's 23 persons watching now.
Okay, so we are gonna start. So welcome everybody to this first live interview. And today we're gonna talk about a nice topic, is unipacking. And if you don't know what unipacking means, it's essentially riding unicycle and bringing with yourself all the necessary things to build a campsite. And usually do like a multi-day tour. And I'm really honored to have here 5 unicyclists that have been riding a lot of unipacking, and especially Munipacking. And I hope that they're gonna inspire us in this period and give us all the inspiration we need to plan our new first unipacking or our next unipacking. I read that Jamie is already planning something in July in Oregon, so why don't get these opportunities to plan something also by ourselves. So a little outline of the session. We're gonna have a small introduction, and then we're gonna have some topic questions we already prepared. And then we're gonna have a session of question and answer, where all of you that are looking, you can write in the comments your questions, also outside the topic question that we have selected, and then the bye-bye section. So I think we can start right now. We're gonna start with a little presentation where all of them are gonna just present themselves, saying the name, where do you come from, how long have you been riding a unicycle, questions, and where were your Munipacking trips and for how long? So please, Maksym.
Okay. So hello everybody. I'm Maksym Siegieńczuk. I'm from Poland. I started to ride unicycle about 12 years ago. I did few short, but maximum 4 days long unipacking trips. It was in New Zealand, Chile, Peru, and the recent one in France. So my unicycle trips are not very long, like Munipacking trips are not very long. Maximum 4 days so far. I think we'll discuss this later. I have some plans for the longer trips, but it's not my priority.
Good.
Cool.
So I pass the
Corbin.
All right. My name's Corbin Dunn, and I've been unicycling about 16 years. And a few years ago, we did the Arizona Trail, which is and I'm from California in the United States. And I did the Arizona Trail a few years ago with Becky down there. And it's about 800 miles through Arizona, one of the states in California, or one of the states in the United States. And yeah, I'll pass it off to AnSo to go next.
Okay, so my name is AnSo. I'm originally from France, but moved about 12 years ago to Vancouver in Canada. I've been riding for about 33 years.
Wow. Whoa.
And so my trips, mainly I've had 2 big ones. One in Patagonia was not fully Muni. It was more unipacking. There's a few Muni sections, but not a lot. But a lot of gravel road. So that was 4,600 kilometers. That would be 3,000 miles, I guess. That was 6 months. And then that was in 2013, and then in 2016, this one was more of a Muni trip that was in the Alps. It was 3.5 weeks, 500 kilometers, and 20,000 meters of elevation. So it was like a lot of up and down. Yeah. No, next.
Nice.
Becky. Oh, is she with us? Becky,
Becky.
your
Becky.
turn.
Wake up.
We can hear you.
Oh,
Yeah, so my connection was lost. Yeah. Yeah, and I've been riding now since 2008, and I've done 3 big unipacking trips. So one was also with Corbin and Jamie, the Arizona Trail. And the last 2 years I did 2 small unipacking trips in Scotland. These were about 6 to 9 days.
Okay. Souryan?
Yeah. So my name is Souryan, Souryan Dubois. I'm from France, and I've been riding unicycle for 11 years now, and I think 6 years of competitions. So I do a lot of long distance riding, and I started bike touring with my father, and then got into unicycle touring. And I also did some few unipacking trips. So my 2 main unipacking trips were one in Ireland of 5 days, over 200 kilometers and 5,200 meters elevation. And my last recent one was with Maksym in the Alps, in the Charters Mountains, and it was over 3.5 days, and we were just riding some really technical trails around. So that's it.
Nice. Really impressed about how many unipacking trips you have done, and especially how long have you been riding. So that's great. I think we can move on the topic questions that you think most interesting, and we will start with really difficult questions. So be prepared, please. And all of you that are watching, please feel free, if you have any question related to the topic, to write in the comments, so we can try to address those questions. If we don't, please, I'm sorry, it's the first time we do something like this, so we're gonna try to do our best. So the first question is, why do you do Munipacking? Maksym.
So that's the question to me. I was very skeptical to Munipacking because I ride unicycle to enjoy the feeling of riding unicycle, and with unicycle is heavy, or I have this luggage on me, then this mechanics is completely different, and so my enjoyment of riding unicycle itself is not that good. But yeah, so I did one trip in New Zealand because the trail was 80 kilometers long, and that time I didn't know if I could do it in one day or not. So I tried unipacking, and I didn't took a tent with me. I tried to go super light, but it's still I took food for 3 or 4 days, and it was too heavy for me. I carried on my back, and I didn't really enjoy. So for the next 6 years, I didn't repeat the unipacking or any other unipacking. So, but of course, I get more stronger, and I try to buy more lighter equipment. So mine at the moment, I carry much less than in the past regarding the weight. So I don't know, I never weighted my backpack, but I think it's around 10-12 kilograms, and plus the food. And of course I could reduce the more because I actually carry about 2 kilograms of the photo equipment. But then you cannot see the what are my experiences in the mountains. Yeah. So I carry my cameras and tripod. And recently, because there was 6 years break, yeah, from New Zealand till last year. And last year I did 3 Munipacking trips, and it was actually good. It works for me, and I'm sure I will continue doing it. But last year I resumed, and what is my goal? Because like my goal is not to do Munipacking because okay, let's go Munipacking, find some long trip and do it. No, it's usually I open the map, I try to ride trails in the mountains, but sometimes those trails are just too long. I cannot do it in one day, or they are super, high. It's difficult to access, see some escape. Difficult to plan anything. Sometimes in Peru you don't really know where you go, and you don't know if it takes 1 day or 4 days. Yeah. So having all the equipment with you, you're like self-sufficient, and you can stay 4 days in the mountains if it's necessary, or you will finish in 2 days. Yeah. Or so sometimes you just have food with you. Yeah. And so that's why I do Munipacking, because recently I operate in the very remote and high places, the mountains. So I just I want to be safe, so I take more gear with me, and what happens, whatever, I'll survive, I hope.
Nice. That's nice.
So
you do for exploit as much as possible the longer trails, so you can ride all of the trails and don't be like stopped by the time and come back home. That's really
for example, there is one kind of line that I wanted to ride. It's about 2,500 meters elevation gain. All the time going on the volcano, like 45 degrees volcano cone. And you don't know if you manage to do it one day. So if you take a sleeping bag, I'm not talking about tent or cooking equipment, but if you take already a sleeping bag and some more food, you might survive the night over there. Yeah,
that's great.
Or some trails in Peru, you completely don't know anything. You just see the trail on the map and you don't know if there is any village or not. Okay, let's pack for 4 days and you can go. Otherwise, you just have to cancel this.
That's good. And Corbin, what about you?
Well, I think the question of why to unipack is the same as to why to unicycle. Why are we doing something that's clearly a lot easier on a bike? And I think a lot of us just do it for the challenge. We're interested in doing something that's difficult to do and not easy. And our trip through the Arizona Trail, it was 800 miles. I skipped the first few days due to work, and I was on the trail for almost 30 days. Rebekka, or Becky, she was down on the trail with Jamie for, I believe, about 34 days. So why did we do this? Just for the adventure and for the challenge. Clearly, there are easier ways of doing this. We were also not particularly fast on some of the trails where we had to push a lot because it was just physically too difficult to ride. We had days where we go 20 miles and just push the unicycle uphill, and we weren't any faster than unicyclists. So it was pretty interesting. Yeah. I'm going to pass to AnSo now and see what she has to say.
Yes, just short things. We just noticed that the live comments are turned off, so we will try to fix it. And it's our bad since the first time. If we can't fix the live comments, I think all of you knows the people inside this chat, and so if we are not able to fix it, just write down your questions, and then I'm sure they will be glad to answer your question if you write them on Instagram or Facebook or on their website. So yeah. Sorry for the interruption. Anne-Sophie, please.
Yeah, I really like the idea of self-propelled adventures where you're self-sufficient. So you have your own things and you can stop whenever, and you're not dependent on your surroundings. Of course, you have to stop once in a while for food, and I love the outdoors and I like to be in full immersion. Like I like the idea that I don't have to go back to a house or a place at the end of the day. I like to be there for a while. And then my favorite kind of riding is Muni. So I had to do it that way at one point. I guess I went for long ones, as I said, because I really like the full immersion, but I can see that shorter one would make sense. In a way, it's a lot of preparation for a short time. I think like when I do one, I'm like, oh, I might as well like just go for it. But I'd like to do some shorter ones, and it might work better now that I have a little kid. So yeah, those are the reasons. I thought the explanation from Maksym were super interesting, and I kind of like his approach, and seeing about how he's into really about the trails themselves, and I think then he's able to enjoy more of the trails, and he's done like really good riding. Mine were not always like the most amazing riding. But for me, it's about the full immersion up there in nature for a while, and
That's great. So we can see different reason why to do this. And so this means that it's not only for a special rider, but it can be for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Becky?
Yeah, I think it's two different kinds why you do it. It's when you start to do it, it's a different reason than when you continue to do it. Like for starting, I was like, that sounds nice. I really love the idea of going camping and carrying everything with me. But it turned out completely different. And the reason why I continued is just like the simplicity of it. You just have your unicycle, and you have the trail, and the goal for the day is to reach some point or ride as long as you're possible, and then you just set up your tent and go to bed again, and the next day the same. You just like riding and nothing else. And I really love that idea, just to be also in the remote areas and have no people around you or just a few. And one day when I finished my Scotland unipacking trip in 2018, I stopped shortly before Glasgow, and because it was supposed to rain, I took the train into downtown Glasgow. And it was really weird to just be suddenly out of nature into a big city. And it was like such a shocking moment for me to see so many people just like rushing by in their everyday life. And for me, it was like, wow, I want to go back on the trail and forget about all the normal life. And for me, it's like to be in it's a different me when I'm on the trail. So it's totally forget about your everyday life, and it's like just your unicycle, yourself, and the trail. And I simply love that simplicity. Yeah.
Nice. Souryan, what about you?
So my motivation to Munipacking is mainly because I love to sleep in the woods, and so you can just ride all day long. And when you're tired, you stop wherever you want to stop. So you just carry everything you need with you. And I just like the feeling of freedom it gives you, because you just follow a trail, and if it's not what you want, you can like change trails, and just the freedom of having everything with you, and be okay to stop wherever you want. And also doing it on a unicycle, what I like is that people's like when you meet people, they will stop and ask you a question and start to speak to you. And so I think it's a really good way to meet some great people and chat with them. And when you're doing it abroad, it's a good way to like meet the sometimes rural people, and it's what I like about it. and also riding like actual trails is really nice. Because I also did some unicycle touring. It sometimes you just hear riding, watching the landscape, but the trail is a bit boring. And so when you're doing Munipacking, it's great to like walk up when it's too hard and just enjoy the view, and then ride and cool downhill and really get a lot of adrenaline going down. So it's nice.
Great, great. So a lot of different reason and for the same goal. That's pretty interesting. So I think we can go ahead with the next question, and I would like to ask you to tell us about one of your Munipacking trip, and tell also about like the trail character. So what's the trail and resupply points I was organized. Just give us a short overview of, I don't know, something that maybe remains in your heart, something like this.
Okay, so I'll talk about my trip in Peru. I did actually 2 Unipacking tours in Peru. One was to Machu Picchu. It took me about 4 days, but it was like a typical trekking. So I don't really want to talk about this. It was just you follow the trekking. Another one I did 1 week later. It was I find the trail on Trailforks, which is like a database for the trails for the bikers, and I found Double Black Diamond 15 kilometers long trail, for which the access is going up the trail, and the elevation of this trail is about 4,000 meters high. So you can expect that you can go very slow on this elevation. So it might take you a lot of time. And also to ride 15 kilometers on the Double Black Diamond, it can be either dangerous because it's super difficult, and if something happens, you are far away from everything. And it might be that you cannot finish this in 1 day. Yeah? So maybe if you start very early, you will finish very late. Yeah? So I decided to go Munipacking on this trail. But okay, so as I decided to go Munipacking, let's find some different options, because so then I look on the map and I find that I can actually approach this trail from the other side. So I have to take a bus to the other side, around the mountains, and start on the other side of the mountain range. And so it was very remote. There were some villages, but those villages over there were very not connected with the real world. So it was super experience to be there and to see how the people exist over there. And I get no information about supply points, so I only see that there are some lakes and rivers, so I was sure that I can get the fresh water, but I was sure that I cannot get the food, and there was no any information that I can set up camp or something. It was just go. And on this kind of decisions, you don't know really what can be the trail, like the one that I started, the first, the uphill, because you have no any information. Maybe you can ride, maybe this will be 4-wheel drive road, maybe this will be super difficult, you have to hike all the way. Yeah. So, but that's interesting because my walking speed in the unicycle is not much slower than normal walking speed. So I feel good if I have to walk all the way up. And actually on these elevations, about 4,000 meters, even easier uphills are very difficult, especially with the luggage. So of course you expect to walk uphills, but there were some downhills. I love to ride technical terrain, and with my around 10 kilogram backpack, I'm doing quite well. So I really liked this trail. And the special thing on this trail was the next day I was riding my unicycle, super remote, and I met a local woman on the trail. I will share you the picture, maybe. It was so amazing to see the people there, and she had no backpack. She got just this typical Peruvian kind of to carry the luggage. And where is this? So it was really amazing for me how the people exist over there. What is she? Where is she going to? There is no any shop. There is no any villages actually. She was. I assumed that she was going to look after her llamas.
So that's nice. That even if you were in the remote, you find a way to meet some person. That's also the unexpected experience you can have. That's nice. Okay, so Corbin, what about you?
Okay, so I'll Maksym flip to the shared screen, so you don't have to stare at my face for so long, and you can see the route that we did. You able to flip through it?
Yeah, but wait, where's Corbin?
There we go. Okay, so this is Arizona and the United States, and basically we started down here at the bottom, which is right by Mexico, and we went 800 miles all the way, bisecting the state in half up to Colorado. So it took us, the 34 days was the total. I started in Tucson due to work restrictions. I could only go about 30 days. And the trail itself is a hiking trail, pure off-road, pretty much the whole way. We had to do some bypasses because through certain national forests, you aren't allowed to have wheels. So we did have to do some road and some fire roads to avoid going through certain forest areas. But most all of it was off-road. And the way that we did it is we would send supplies. We would mail ourselves supplies. We would mail things to areas that were, I think, about a week apart. So we would just, before the trip, we just went and mailed things to different portions where we knew we could pick them up. And in the United States, it's pretty easy. You mail things to a post office, addressed to yourself, and say, please hold, and then you can go and pick it up. So we prepare food packets and mail it to ourselves. Jamie organized this trip, and he figured out where we would need some water drops. So he pre-drove a lot of it in his car and dropped off water at particular locations. Arizona is very deserty, particularly in the southern portion. So down in Tucson through Phoenix, all the way up to pretty much up to Flagstaff, which is here in the middle. It's very hot and deserty and not a lot of water. So we would have to set up water stops. For other locations, let's see, I have some fun pictures of water somewhere, if I can find it. Where was the water?
Did you get water through cactus? Or just
you cannot get water in cactuses. I have a great water picture, but I can't. I thought I had it up.
Is it the one with the bees? Or?
Yes, the one with the bees. That one was a great one.
I have it.
You have it? Okay. There it is. I found it.
Yeah, I
There
have
it is.
I can. Oh, yeah.
So this is an example of the water that we were drinking on the trail. We would filter it, of course.
Brave guys.
Yeah. All right. Well, that kind of just as a quick overview of the trail. Water was difficult. We did have some stops where there was not water, and we were basically running out. And with the three of us, Jamie actually hitchhiked into town one day and picked up some water for us and brought it back, and beer, because why not?
Important.
Yeah, so that's a quick overview. Let's pass it over to AnSo to talk a little about her trip.
So I guess I'll be talking about the Alps because it's more of a Muni trip. I guess one of the big thing was like tons of elevation many days in a row. So that was really hard. The one thing that was pretty hard for us was to find the route, because so what happened is that haute route, which we were following, but the first part of the trip was going from where I grew up to Chamonix. It was kind of like a pilgrimage or something like that. For me, it was just like to reconnect with the Alps I'd see from my window when I was little. But the second part,
I fixed the comments, guys. I fixed the comments. I think so.
Oh,
All right.
But the second part of the trip was to follow haute route, which is a famous ski traverse. And in the past few years, I don't know how many years, they've kind of adapted it to bikes. But there isn't really an official route. And so everybody's kind of doing whatever. And so for me, it was really hard to define what route we were going to take. Mm-hmm. And even when we had picked a route, it was hard to find it once there, because there are just so many options along the way. It's hard to, like, is it really the trail? Is it where we should go, or it's not? And so it was taking a lot of our time, and I felt that maybe we didn't enjoy the ride as much, because I was like always looking at my phone to check where, if it were the right spot or not. And that was that was a little difficult. In terms of food, there are many villages, so that wasn't really a problem, except that it's villages, so they're not open many hours. And so of course we'd always arrive during lunchtime or just after they had closed, and we had to wait for like 2 hours before they opened again. Or we just arrived too late in the evening when they had closed. So it's now that I'm used, and I'm from France, but now that I'm used to North America, where things are open a lot more, even though I knew, but it was still a difficulty sometimes. Yeah, we just wait hours until the shop was open because we were out of food. And so in the planning, it makes it a bit harder, because you think you can keep going and you'll be able to spend the night somewhere, but actually not. And then what else I didn't want to. Oh, and because of I guess the type of terrain that was like really steep, some days we had a hard time finding a flat spot. I mean, it happens in any trip. Like in Patagonia, I also sometimes had a hard time, but here you're on the mountains, so it's it's even harder. Yeah. So I think that's mostly what I was going to talk about.
Nice. Thank you very much.
I don't have a map of my trip yet. I was hoping to work on it last night, but then I was just like finishing my website. So my website's finished, and so that's the next step. So my map will be up there soon.
That's great, because only with 3 unicyclists, we just seen completely different way to approach the trail. And the things of mailing food is something I never thought about it. That's pretty smart. And also dropping the water. Wow, that was well planned to make such a long tour.
It's a common thing on all the long trails in the US. Like a lot of they have long hikes, and that's how it's dealt with. That's the only way to go through those trails in the US. Well, also because there's way less population on those big. I mean, depending on where you are, where you just need to go for your trip.
And if you are mailing it, you can also have someone mail you things when you're into the trip. So you could tell someone back at home, hey, in a week, mail this package, so it'll be there in 3 or 4 days, because that's when you anticipate being at your location.
Great. Becky?
Becky is frozen.
Oh,
Not
No,
yet.
we can hear you. Yeah.
No, I'm back. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So for the Arizona Trail, as Corbin already said, we dropped some water, and in total it was like 2 huge shopping carts full of gallons. And I think it took us about 2 days just to drive down the trail and drop water along the way. And for my 2 other unipacking trips, I totally did it different. So they were in Scotland, and Scotland is not really remote, so you can find at least a shop every 2 or 3 days, a bigger one where you can get some resupplies. And I didn't really like to go every day to a shop, because then you will always depend on the shop what it also has in his store. So I was like getting more independent. So I was doing like I'm carrying food for like 3 or 4 days. In Arizona, we did like 5 days, I think. And also with water, I filtered water from streams, or when there was a public toilet, I used this the water.
we lost her.
Let's see if it comes back. If she comes back.
Water from the
Becky.
public toilet.
We're losing you, Becky.
Becky, Souryan.
Yeah, we're gonna move.
Okay.
Yeah, unless Becky is back. Go, Souryan.
Yeah, so so my main unipacking trip in Ireland. So my goal was to meet a lot of Irish people on the
And I
way.
also carried
back.
a bag for my unicycle to go into the airplane with. We also to find quickly depart action is a bit. Yeah.
Okay, seems you're back.
Becky, say something now. Are you in real time or not? Looks like Becky is.
Okay, we're gonna wait a little bit.
I think I'm back again.
Yeah.
The voice, yes.
What was the last thing? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I'm back.
Okay.
Okay. What was the last thing you understood or heard of me?
Okay, so I think we can come back to you. So while the connection fixes, so Souryan, you can say you, and then we come back to Becky.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so my plan in Ireland was around meeting Irish people. So I had some accommodation on the way through Warm Shower website. I found the first night in Dublin. Maybe Maksym, you can show my screen so I can show the map. So I started in Dublin, where I had an accommodation from Warm Shower, and then the trail took me 4 days to do, and I planned my accommodation on the.
Did you visit all this bed?
Sorry, no. No. So yeah, so I was planning to go from one city to another city to another city. So I didn't carry much stuff. I had food only for 1 or 2 lunch at the time, and snacks. And also only had things to sleep one night outside, and it was in a shelter. So I only had like a sleeping bag. So I was traveling really light. So I had only just a 20-liter backpack to carry all my stuff. And so I couldn't bring a lot of food and very few stuff. But I just followed the trail. I chose a marked way trail. So I had the map on my phone, but other than that, I just followed the trail. It's a pretty famous trail in Ireland. So it's how I planned it. Yeah, and then I finished at a friend's house before finishing on the road to my student city here. So yeah, so I had 3 nights in accommodation through warm shower of friends, and 1 night outside in a shelter on the way. So it's how I did this trip. Yeah.
Pretty nice.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, let's try to go back on Becky.
Yeah. So did you
Perfect.
understand something, or should I start over again?
We arrived to
Okay.
the food in Scotland.
Yeah. So I took about like food for 3 days or 4 days, and in the Arizona we took food for 5 days, and so I took food for 3 days because I didn't want to stop every day, and it feels more comfortable to have food for 3 days and know you don't need to stop and you can just enjoy the trail and have no reason to stop or to do a bypass. And the water I got either from like public water taps or from some streams. And so the trails were about so I did hiking trails. So in the beginning I looked in Scotland which hiking trails I can do, because I knew I wanted to go to Scotland to go sailing with friends. And I did the Great Glen Way and the West Highland Way in 2018. Together it was about 250 kilometers and I think 5,000 meters of elevation gain. And in 2019 I did the Speyside Way and the East Highland Way. It was also again like 250 kilometers and about 3,000 meters of elevation gain, I think. And yeah, so in 2019, last year, I also needed to cut 2 days of my unipacking trip because it was supposed to be stormy and rainy the next 2 days, and I really didn't want to ride in that. And the day I decided to stop, I already packed my tent up really, really red, and it was just no way to continue the trail there. But luckily, this year I was going sailing at the end of my trip with Yuri and Elke, and they were apparently in the same town. That was really good. So I just wrote to them and did 2 days more sailing instead of unipacking.
Oh,
yeah.
That's pretty nice. That's pretty nice. So this is great because we can see different approach to different trail, for longer trail, shorter trail, and so on. Now, I will give just a quick overview of the topic questions, so also people are watching can wait to ask specific question in the topic and knows what is going to be outside and for the latest section about Q&A. So now we're going to talk about the unicycle, the backpack, the mattress and sleeping bag, the clothing, the food, and especially what's not to forget. And we're talking about also maps and GPS. So this is the topic we're gonna cover. So just wait till we ask the question about the topic, and if you have something more our unicyclists haven't answered, just give the question. So now we're gonna start with the unicycle. So try just like your experience, and you can confirm or disagree with the other. Just let's see what happens. Unicycles. So what do you suggest as the sides of the wheel, the crank, and especially the saddle? That is important. And Schlumpf or not? These are, and if you have something else, just add it. So what do you think, Maksym?
So basically, I use my unicycle that I use for downhills, and that's a 27-inch wheel. Because no, I don't attach luggage to my unicycle, so it's basically just the unicycle that I use. And for some trips, I use with Schlumpf, some with that, but basically I don't use Schlumpf when I'm doing Munipacking. Yeah? So it doesn't really. If I have one with Schlumpf on my trip in Chile, and I decided to do Munipacking for a few days, okay, I take this one, and there was only like, it's just too heavy to carry it, and when you ride downhills with the heavy backpack, you don't really want to use Schlumpf. Even on the road, it feels not really safe to ride with the backpack on the Schlumpf. So I don't really recommend Schlumpf, but of course, if somebody wants to ride, maybe with bigger wheels on the roads, that should not be a problem. But I would say definitely not for Munipacking. In my style, when I carry my luggage on the back, I expect a lot of falls forward on the hands. So my run-out skills are not as efficient when I carry backpacks. So usually when I fall on the head, because all this mass is taking me down. So I don't really recommend Schlumpf. Yeah.
Okay, Corbin, what was your experience and what do you suggest?
Okay, so for the unicycle, I used a 26-inch wheel, and I think this is highly dependent on the type of trail you're going to do and you're planning on doing. The more difficult the trail, the smaller the wheel you probably want. I think if you're doing Munipacking, you probably want a 26 or 27.5. A 29 is probably too big, and it's probably more for just fire roads. The same with a 36. And I initially started our trip with a Schlumpf geared hub, which would have been perfect in my opinion, because the trail we did had bypasses, some which were very easy fire roads, and some where we were on the road. And in high gear, I could have flown and just sped past that. But the majority of the riding that we did probably was in low gear. So having the single speed unicycle and not having the additional weight would have been a lot better. Maksym, you want to share the screen again and I can show some pictures of this setup? So this is my 26-inch mountain unicycle that I did the Arizona Trail with. And let's see, without the geared hub. The other thing about not having a gear, that hub weighs 3 pounds, which is heavy. We had to carry everything with us through some portions of the trail. When you go through the Grand Canyon, you cannot have wheels touch the ground. So we had to throw all this stuff onto our backs. And so having another 3 pounds would have been 3 more pounds, and it was pretty hard to carry everything. So the setup that you see here, I designed a custom little pannier that was in the front. I really like having as much weight off of my body and onto the unicycle as possible. It makes it a lot more comfortable for your butt on long distances. So I had a front pannier. I have some links on my site showing how I made it and some of the details about it. I also detail a little bit about the setup itself. So here's a photo of the front pannier. The rack is just a typical rack, a bike rack that you can buy. We have a place called REI in the United States that has these that you can buy. It just attaches to the seat post. Underneath it is a small pack where I would keep just tools and miscellaneous stuff. If I were to do this trail again, I'd probably make a custom pannier in the rear of it so that I could have more weight in the rear underneath the wheel that's kind of was in wasted space. The actual main luggage, I just made a stuff sack and would stuff everything into it. And this is my tent, this is my sleeping bag, and this is my food, or some of the food. Additional things I would carry in a backpack. Now, I put it horizontal to the direction here This makes it more difficult to mount. I'd have to get onto the unicycle and kind of kick up from one side to mount it. But I liked having the weight closer to the saddle. I found if the weight was further in the back, it would make the unicycle more unstable. So having weight close to me was kind of essential. And I experimented with lots of different designs and just different things and found what worked best for me. Even with the weight, it takes a little while to actually get used to riding with it like this. And as soon as you remove the weight, the unicycle feels unwieldy and just strange. So you will get used to it. Jamie and Rebekka both had their packs on the back, kind of just parallel with the rack. And that worked pretty well for them. For the actual food that we brought,
wait. We're gonna go
we're gonna do food in a bit. Okay.
Yeah, step by step. So now we're just talking for the unicycle. Then we're gonna see all the other things.
Sounds good. Then let's pass it over to AnSo, and she can talk about her unicycle setup.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So for me, same for Muni, I would go with a smaller wheel. In Patagonia, I had a 29er with a geared hub, and for a big part of the trip, I didn't even use the gear. It was just too hard, too windy, too much bad gravel road. So anyway, for the Alps, yeah, I went for the 26. Being short, I haven't really tried a 27.5, but 26 works pretty well for me. And I knew our trip was going to be a lot of steep slopes, and so yeah, small. I didn't want the weight of a geared hub, and I knew we were barely gonna ever use it. There was not a lot of like rolling easy trails on the strip. Use the 150 millimeter crank. I'm gonna share. How do I do this? My screen. If that works. Does that work? Your entire screen. Can I do I need Maksym to help me here, or is that?
Yeah, no, you just need to click the start screen on your bottom of the screen.
Well, right now it's not letting me. Share. Oh, right. Sorry. That was. And then here we go. No, that's not what I want. Here we go. So that's my unicycle. And for Muni, I actually decided that a little bit like Corbin, I really wanted everything to be really close to my seat and not even have much in the front, because I was finding that it would just project me forward and make me fall more often every time it was really steep downhill. So I only have my water there. And the rack, it was actually built out of a rack that's sold the same actually at REI in the States. It's a front rack for bikes, and we cut just the little parts to be able to attach it. And my partner Justin made a little adapter, really small little part to attach it, and it worked great. So, and in terms of seat, I actually prefer the free ride, the Chrism free ride, than at least for Muni long days on the seat. That's what works for me. I just never managed to get used to the 0 or the 1. And I haven't tried the mat for 1 seats, I have to say. And I don't have much experience with handlebars on Muni. I have for long distance. I was using it in Patagonia, but for Muni, I'm just so used to my position of my hand on the handle, the little handle. And I was like, I'm not going to try to learn this new skill before I go. So that's how I decided to do it. And I guess the rest of the gear is not unicycle related. So that's it for now.
Yeah, perfect. Becky?
Yeah. So I'm also riding now a 27.5 inch uni. Before on the Arizona Trail I had a 26 inch uni, but this broke shortly after it. So I got a 27.5 uni now, and it makes just like a slightly difference. It's not a big jump. The most important point is more that you have a much wider choice of tires for 27.5. That's why I prefer it now. And also with the Schlumpfhub, Jamie was telling us before we started the Arizona Trail, don't bring a Schlumpfhub, because he also has a one, but he didn't. And Corbin, of course, took his one with him, but it unfortunately failed after day 2. But luckily, our friend Casey helped us out. That was great. So, and still without the Schlumpfhub, Corbin was still like flying when we were like very slow, and when it was road riding, Corbin was like going way ahead of us. So we were actually a bit happy that he didn't have his Schlumpf. So we would like see him a bit more often, because he was in the flat parts and in the downhill parts the fastest of us. And yeah. So, and I had just a normal 26-inch unicycle with 137 millimeter cranks. And I am riding 137 millimeter cranks also now. And I really love to have a handlebar, because I will try to show you a picture. Hopefully it works and my internet doesn't break down.
I'm with Rebekka. I think a handlebar is essential. It lets you take weight off of your butt.
So I am just reading the comments. I use KH0 or one saddles.
I don't know if you see much. Rich.
Becky.
Yeah, I think that then it's a lot about self-experience on the saddle. I mean, Chris on 0 and 1 saddle is...
One moment.
It's really hard to get used to.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, my screen is visible now, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I'm riding. So I was told with handlebar, because I have like a lot of weight back in my pannier. So I have like the sleeping bag and some other stuff right here. And underneath I have my tent now, and I also have like it's sold as a frame bag, where I have like my some heavy tools or other stuff, and I really like need this handlebar to handle all the weight in the bag. And my like when I first tried my rack, I didn't have a handlebar, and it was like totally horrible. I could not handle it, and that's why I love to ride with the T-bar. And I would not go unipacking without a T-bar anymore, because it's impossible, I think, without for me. And I'm riding the QX11 saddle that's also made by Chris Holm. And yeah, I like it. Before I rode the Nimbus Gil saddle. It was also pretty comfortable for me and worked well. Only like the stitches on the saddle, there were some on top. These were worrying a bit, but I removed them now, and with removing the stitches up here, it's gotten way more comfortable now and doesn't rub anymore. And I really love my setup. And also I moved some weight from my backpack to my setup, and yeah, so yeah, that's it.
Nice. Souryan, what about you?
So, so for my setup, I started with a 29-inch unicycle, with 125 millimeter cranks. Wait, can you share my screen, Maksym? So, so my first setup was so with the 0 saddle and the 29-inch unicycle. So it was great in Ireland because it was a lot of flow trails and dirt fire roads, and it was really great to be able to roll really fast. And I was also able to go up with this setup. To ride up, I mean, and for packing, I use just simple bungee cords that I wrap around my sleeping bag and just wrap it in a plastic bag for waterproofing. And I also my second setup I used this summer was the 27-inch with a schlumpf, and it was for the Alps. And so 27-inch with 140 cranks was really great, but I would use it without a schlumpf because schlumpf is really heavy to when you have to carry unicycle on the shoulder up the slopes. It makes the unicycle really heavy. And I also had packing system on the unicycle, very simple bungee cords. I don't want to get in complicated setups. So yeah, it's the most simplest setup I found, and everything else is on my back. But I would really like to implement a handlebar on the unicycle because the 0 saddle is really great, but I would really like to have a handlebar to
Remove the weight.
make it better. Yeah.
Yeah, because the 0 saddle, a lot of people doesn't like because at the beginning is really a lot of pain, but most of people love it because as soon as you pass this pain period, it's really give you a lot of space where to move and just change the weight position on your butt, and so you can survive a little bit more.
Yeah, but I would really ride it with a handlebar. It's a saddle made to ride with a handlebar mostly for long rides, like more than 2 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, so we can say that for the saddle, it depends really on your experience on the normal Muni, and I think it's like with the bike. So if you never ride more than, tell me if I say something wrong. If you never ride more than 1 hour Muni, then if you start a long ride, it can be painful. Maybe you should start training a little bit with such a longer rider where you can understand your feeling with the saddle and so on. Also test maybe the setup. So we have seen the schlumpf is not good for Munipacking since it's really heavy and you're not going to use that much. And for the cranks, medium cranks, it's pretty good. And I think now we can move. So for the packing, I've seen
just. Sorry, can I just say that I just recommend that you use your like normal unicycle setup, but just put higher longer cranks. It's just one thing that changes the weight on your back, so you need longer cranks. But other than that, just use your normal setup. Usually it works.
Great. So yes, since you have more weight to carry, longer cranks can help in pushing enough, helping in the weight, bringing high the weight. And about the backpack and the bags, I mean, I've seen that most of you, apart Maksym, loves to put the stuff on your unicycle. Corbin says that it's a way like to, especially next to the center, so it's easier to roll. It won't like unbalance yourself on the unicycle. And also for Becky, since she has a kind of back, I mean, but so it seems that it's on the unicycle is something good. And Maksym, what about having heavy backpacks on your backpack? Was that a problem for you? Would you move on bags on the unicycle?
So, first of all, I try to go ultralight back, kind of ultralight backpacking. Yeah? So I don't carry really heavy bags. So it's not that big of the problem because, I say it's about 10 maybe maximum 50 kilograms.
Oh.
So there is no more. I don't carry much. So if you go light, it's no problem, in my opinion. Yeah, and
so
you can still enjoy the real Muni.
Oh, yeah. So the best way if you do a pretty long one and you need to carry enough stuff is to put everything on your unicycle so it can help yourself saving energy to hiking and so on and riding.
Yeah, and it's much easier to carry a unicycle up when you have just around, my unicycle was around 5.5 kilograms. Yeah, so if you have only 5.5 kilograms in hand, it's much easier to carry it in a very technical uphill.
Okay, here we have a questions about the T-bar. So someone is asking if there are difference between the straight T-bars or the band one. Which one do we prefer for the Munipacking and so on?
So
can answer?
for the quiz home, yeah, I can answer. So
Go, Becky.
Oh, I try first. So there are two handlebars, the straight one and the other one that's banded, and the banded one is much longer. And I think it's a bit too long for unipacking, and I personally prefer the straight one. But I also, for unipacking, I have it a bit longer than my normal Muni setup. So I think for unipacking, the straight one is, for me, the best. So the banded one is more like for road riding, I guess. So.
And I kind of think it differently. It's really what you're used to and what you prefer. So whatever you use for your normal unicycling, particularly long distances, is what you want to use when you're unipacking. And I just like ones where my arms are pretty far out and my hands are, I prefer a very specific hand position. And so it's really just what you're used to. So try different things.
The things you can suggest is probably once you have an idea of the trail you're gonna do, if it's more technical trail or maybe less technical, more hiking, you can try to, I don't know, pack your unicycle as you think it works. Try to do like 1 day packing, just ride 50 kilometers, sleep in the, I don't know, in the woods and then come back and see how it works. Do you think that this is something helpful to do, to understand?
Yeah, very useful. You have to test your equipment. Our first trip, the first big trip I did was 30 days. And so I had to make sure everything worked. And so I do overnight tests.
Yeah, so I didn't prepare with overnight tests. So I just went for it, but it worked. So, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So now we can go to the next question. Is about mattresses, sleeping bag, tent, and kitchen. So what do you think is the best, like, to bring with you, like mattress with air or the mattress, the foldable one without air? The tent, how big, how weight? I mean, it's how many sides, impermeable or not? Sleeping bags, and yes, also the kitchen, the stove. So did you bring something you cook in your trail?
The lighter you can. You just want to go as light as possible. This is the goal. Light, light, light.
Yeah. And
yeah.
So that's my sleeping mattress. So not only light. In my setup, I also prefer to have it compact. So all my weight is compact because when I was planning to buy my stuff, I want to have a backpack that is 44 liters and no more. Because if I have 44 liters backpack, it all must go very compact. If I have a bigger backpack, this weight will spread more out from my back, so more out from my center of the gravity. Yeah. So I really want to have all compact, so I buy equipment that is not only light but is small. So
I'm with you.
So the suggestion you have, if you have a backpack, to put all the weight at the bottom so it can stay kind of next to your unicycle, and if you do move, it's not gonna like bending you all over.
Yeah. Also, when you have like all the weight in your bottom, you don't fly and do a face plant instantly. When you have all the weight on top, you just always, when you fall, you would do a face plant. And with more weight in the bottom, you would do less face plants. So you can have a chance to run and don't do a face plant. And face plants happen pretty often, I think. So I've had now 3 face plants in my life, and 2 happened while unipacking, because the backpack is just heavy and you just like
Smash.
So I have some advice on the sleeping pad. And Maksym, you want to share the screen again? I can show you a shot of what we were doing. And so this picture here, this one's Jamie, and he's got a closed foam sleeping pad, and Rebekka also has a closed foam sleeping mat. And I started out with a air pump up one that you blow up every night. Worked great, super comfortable, except Arizona is very spiky, and I got flats, and it was not staying. It would lose air at night, and that sucked because I was then sleeping on the ground. And so I actually, halfway through the trip, I mailed mine back to myself and bought one of these closed foam ones that Jamie has. And the advantage of these is they're pretty darn light. You can strap them anywhere pretty much. And not only do they double as a sleeping pad, but you can just use it as a chair. You can sit in the block, and you can just, it's more versatile, and you don't have to worry about it. It's not going to go flat. So that's my recommendation.
I've used both, and for me, I still prefer the one that are inflatable. I know you can have leaks. I've fixed several times in the middle of the night, but it was worth it. I feel that I sleep so much better on an inflatable. And what I do is I also use one that only goes up to my knees. They're lighter. And then from my knees on, I just use my backpack because I don't need anything comfortable for my feet. So it makes it even lighter. But I agree with Maksym that I want to go as compact as possible and as light as possible. So I tend to really prefer the inflatable. I see the appeal of those ones. We have some too, but I do think it's, for me, worth taking the risk of having leaks. The comfort for the night is much higher, and
just be prepared to patches.
Maybe depends on the trip you're doing. Oh, Justin, it's too.
Yeah, it does depend on your trip. The Arizona Trail is full of cactuses, you know.
Yeah.
Corbin, can you use tubeless milk to inside?
Do the what? The inside?
To put inside the tubeless milk, you know.
Yeah. You can put the gel. Yeah.
So about the tent, they're asking if anyone used a bivy, a bivac.
BV.
I think.
BV.
So,
No.
a single one tent.
I was planning to for the Alps, and then I ended up going with Kelly, and we just used. She was really new into camping and all of this. She bought a super light tent, so we ended up going with her tent. We were sharing the tent, and so I didn't, but I guess.
So my tent is very small. It's almost like a baby.
Yeah.
And it weighs half kilogram.
What?
And it's size of 1 liter in an Algana bottle.
Wow.
So it's
And keep it warm.
No, it's not the purpose to keep it warm. Yeah. No any other tent to keep you warm. It's a sleeping bag that can keep you warm.
Yes,
so
but
basically,
it's
not comfortable
impermeable.
to live in. It's very difficult to change clothes inside. But it protects from the wind and protects against the rain.
The rain. Okay.
But as I say, for extreme unipacking in the high mountains, when you want to carry very little, just half kilogram.
It does depend on your weather that you're anticipating too. So in Arizona, we got snow, we got rain, and we got blistering sun. So we kind of had to have pretty good camping tent to kind of handle that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before.
So I'm also carrying. Yeah. So I'm also carrying a tent, and it's weighs about 1.7 kilos. So I'm not going super light because I'm a student. So you have to do the thing between like money and weight. And so I'm like pretty heavy. So my backpack weighs about 10 kilos empty, and then additionally water and food. So it's maybe goes up to 12 to 14 kilos or 15 even. Depends. For in Arizona, we had to carry sometimes 4 liters of water, and that's weighs a lot. And my uni is 30 kilograms. So yeah, and I really love to have a tent because in Arizona there are also like poisonous animals, and you never know what happens. And one day I have like the interior tent and the outside, and my shoes were standing in between, so they were protected from the rain, but animals were still able to get in. And I woke up and looked in my shoe, and I saw some spider webs, and a black widow was inside my shoe.
Oh God!
And I didn't got it out, and I gave it to Corbin, and Corbin put it out with a stick and said to me, "Yeah, that's a black widow." And yeah, I'm really happy that I looked close. So, and I'm really happy that I have a tent that's fully closed for that situation. Also for Scotland, there are these small flies called midges, and they are biting you and feels like they are eating you alive. And for that, it's also very important to have a full closed tent. But I think for future unipacking trips I'm planning to do in Germany, I will use just a tarp and place me somewhere in the woods, because we don't. Also, wild camping is not allowed, and with a tarp you can. It's still like in the. So it's not forbidden and not allowed. So you can still do it.
You're in the gray line.
Yeah. In the gray line, exactly. So that's what I'm planning for the future, and a tarp is way lighter than my tent, I guess. Yeah.
Souryan?
So yeah, on my setup, I used a tarp as well. Last time when I was with Maksym, I used a hammock. But up in the mountains, it's really cold, and it's really not great to sleep in a hammock. But I think tarp is the best way for a short unipacking trip. For longer unipacking trip, I think a tent would be better if you have the budget to have a good tent, of course. And my last setup, I tried a tent, and it was really great to really be like you have your own space. But yeah, I think the lighter the better, but also you need to consider the comfort you want. And for that, I think also on the mattresses, air mattresses are great. And I think like nowadays you have really light air mattresses that fold really small, so they are really great. Yeah.
Okay, before finishing with the stove, the kitchen, there is a question about the unicycle. Someone asking, did you have flats? Do you recommend bringing extra tube or just good patches? I think that the answer is like every Muni we go around, we need at least one spare tube and some patches, because you never know. Maybe you can do a trip without never having a flat, or like I think in Arizona, it's more likely to have a flat if you have like.
Yeah, so we thought like in Arizona. Yeah, in Arizona we thought like, oh, we will have a lot of flats, and we were 3 people riding, and we didn't have one single flat. It was just like amazing. We had like we put
one in
like
your
a
life.
liner.
Prepare for the next one.
yeah, we had a liner between the tube and the what's called
The tire.
So we had the tire, exactly. We had a liner between the tube and the tire, and this was a protective liner. So if cactuses came through, they didn't went to the tube. And when I returned home, I removed this liner, and I instantly had some cactus flats. So
Wow.
but on the Arizona trail, we didn't have one single flat, but each of us carried a spare tube. And we were very happy that we didn't need to use it. So, yeah.
So, okay, spare tube and patches, it's pretty important to have, just to be sure that if you have a flat, you have, like in the middle of nowhere, you have something. I would say both, since, I mean, after you patch it several times, maybe your tube it's really gone, and so you need to change with a new tube. So it's something that you can find pretty light one, and it doesn't have that much weight. I think it's worth to bring.
So my setup and my opinion is that in areas where the cactuses are like Arizona and in Chile, we use tubeless setup. So if there is a hole, it easily gets patched with the milk. So it's just you pump in, make more pressure, and it's done. And in case you cut the tire, you have a spare tube. So what I do, I go tubeless, and I have one spare tire, not tire, one spare tube in my backpack. But I don't carry patches because normally I don't need it. It's really very rare that I need the spare tube.
Yeah, I agree. I'd go tubeless, probably if I were to do it again, because it prevents flats, and bring a spare tube for if you do get a flat.
Oh, yes, tubeless is something that not all the unicyclists know, and maybe we should go a little bit deep inside, and probably we can find really good solution compared to the tube. That's a good thing to know. Thank you. And about the stove and the kitchen, so for cooking, do you ever bring some? Yes, no? Have you ever cooked around? What is your setup? And
Always. On the last week, we made the ones from cans. And it worked pretty well, actually. I was a little skeptical. I'm going to show you I mean, it's pretty well known, but I'm going to show you where is my, going there. Not that one. Not that one, sorry. Getting there. Right.
It's alcohol.
Yeah. So I was skeptical at first, but I wasn't sure if it was gonna work for us. But it did. It's quite a bit lighter than the other systems. The only thing was I was a little nervous about my little bottle. I was nervous that the alcohol was gonna maybe leak. It did not. And then that means I didn't have to have like a really heavy bottle. So that was for the Alps. In Patagonia, I had something more rugged, but yeah, in the end, I quite like that system, and that also means that you really only carry the amount of alcohol that you need. So that's a way to make things lighter. But yeah, I always want to be totally self-sufficient with my food, so I want to be able to cook for sure. I guess if you're on a really, really short trip, you might not need that, but that's that's my answer.
Nice.
Okay. Yes.
Maksym,
So I wanted to add, because the system what Sophie show is really very light and good for backpacking. Also, so it's a really good system. But what is the minus? It does not work in Central Asia. If somebody wants to go there, it's very difficult, extremely difficult to buy alcohol for it in Central Asia. But all around the world, it is super good. Yeah. And as I say, it's really nice because you can carry as much alcohol as you need. Yeah. I personally don't have the system yet. I use a gas stove, and that's not really good. You know, like I have small canister, which is maybe for, I don't know, 5 days cooking. But if I use it for 2 days, and it's like 2 days remaining, my next trip is maybe for another 5 days. So what? I have to buy a new one. Yeah. So that's really like not really good. With the alcohol stoves, you take as much as you need, and that's a really good system.
Yeah.
I really like it.
And
there's a good point. Sorry, there's a good point from Dylan saying that in some areas you actually not allowed to use them, and it was kind of true in Patagonia. At least Patagonia, you couldn't use one that used wood. Like open fire in some places is not really allowed. So you can't always use them everywhere.
And regarding stoves, what Becky and me and Jamie did on our 30-day tour is that we did use the all canister stoves.
6 years. Yeah.
And there it is, but you have to have a fuel tank.
Yeah.
And what we did to address the weight of these, they will last, I don't know, about 5 or 6 days, or up to a week, depending on how often you use it and the size. But again, on this trip, we mailed packets of food to ourselves about every week. And so in that packet, we would have a fresh canister. And so we would just swap out the canisters each time to ensure we have a full one and wouldn't run out of fuel. And all 3 of us on this trip each brought our own stove. And
on my Scotland trip, I calculated when I got my bottle back, I calculated that it will last me about 14 days, and that we carried that we used way too much in Arizona. So
we definitely
230 grams would last me like 14 days. I've calculated.
Yeah.
So
in Patagonia, it would last me at least that, if not more. I think it would last me a whole month actually.
Yeah.
I've only used
but this is
during my trip.
But it's highly dependent on what you're doing. You know, I made coffee every morning, and every meal we'd have at dinner, or what I was having for dinner were prepackaged meals that you'd add. They're dehydrated, and you'd add boiling water to it. So I was using mine twice a day, make oatmeal for breakfast, coffee, and then dinner. And at lunch, we would have a non-cooking meal. For me, it
was like also oatmeal in the morning, and in the evening I cooked pasta. So it took about like 10 minutes of cooking. Yeah. So I did maybe like 12 minutes a day, and
we definitely
15,
overestimated.
Okay.
We definitely overestimated.
You use some kitchen or stove or something?
I would prefer to use as little as cooking as possible. So usually on short trips where I know I can go from shops to shop, I would try to buy dry food that don't need any cooking, or like prepared stuff that you buy from markets. So it's what I usually do when I'm touring, and when I'm unipacking. If I know I can't go to any shop for more than 2 days, I will have a cooking setup, just very simple, canister and for a fire, and to just boil water to like cook rice or something. But I think if possible, the best is not to have one. But of course, it's better to have warm food. If you're not traveling in the summer, it's better to have warm food, of course.
Okay, so that's great. These are all the options, and also connecting to what Anne-Sophie says before, and also of a comment that you have to be sure that in a place where you're going, fires are allowed, because Dylan is writing that in Colorado usually have regulation to prohibit fires and stoves that do not have a off switch. So also, I think it's also important to understand where you're going, what are the regulations, just to be sure that what you're bringing it's good. And there was also a question about something we've spoken before, the tent. If we bring something to put under the tent, like a waterproof? Do you usually do? You don't?
Yeah, I bring a footprint that goes under the tent, and the footprint gets wet, and the tent stays dry.
But that's. But
And
how does it work? Actually, I don't really know the system. It prevents when it's raining, or it prevents from the moisture from the grass, for example.
Mainly moisture.
So okay.
And
So
Ann-Sophie?
my tent
it also helps with less poking things to go through your mattress.
Yeah.
Yes.
Becky?
So my tent had a really a stable footprint already included, so I didn't need to bring an extra one. So it's very robust or heavy. So it's a bit heavier than the tent. So it's also the material is a bit heavier and stronger than other tents. So I didn't need it to bring another footprint or so. Yeah.
Souryan?
Yeah, for a tent setup, I don't use any tarp under it. But for the tarp setup, I would use an emergency blanket, like a thick one, that you can just put under the mattress and have your tarp over you. So it's how I do it.
Yeah.
Great.
For me, it depends a bit on the length of your trip. If it's a short one, I would do without. If it's a long one, I would probably do with it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Great. That's good.
Same my opinion.
So going ahead with the questions, we can go on clothing, protection, what do you usually bring, like full protection, light protection, and clothing. How many clothes have you bring with you? And also we can connect also food and water. So since we already talked a little bit, so clothing and food and water and protection.
Okay.
Maksym?
So yeah, I'll start. So it also depends where do you go and what temperatures and what do you expect, of course. But for example, my trip to Peru, because I have to leave from Chile and I already packed in Chile all my luggage that I will have in the Peru, and it was very minimalistic. So I got 2 pieces of a t-shirt. So one was on me and one was after the washing, drying. Okay, so you have one on you and one which is on the backpack and is drying.
Same for underwear.
Yeah, same for underwear and the socks.
Yeah.
And what is important that you have this garment that is quick drying. So for example, I got 2 pairs of socks, but one of these pair was not drying quick. So it makes a bit trouble. So you basically have two pairs of t-shirt and underclothes. And I got the long sleeve from merino wool that I use for during my camping or sleeping. I don't use when I ride because I want to have it dry. And one longer sleeve jacket and one kind of Prima Loft. So I have Prima Loft pants. This is one in the back, and it's same size for the jacket. Yeah. So I don't carry long trousers. I carry only the short trousers. Yeah, the shorts. And if there is a bit cold to be in the shorts, I just put my Prima Loft. So it's kind of like this. And for the rain, I don't really enjoy riding in the rain, so I avoid the rain. In case if there is a rain, I prefer to just stay in a shelter. So I don't really take super rainproof garments. So I have one jacket that is super small. It's more like for the wind proof, but it also protects from the rain for the short rains. So you at least have some time to find some shelter, hide somewhere. But I cannot really ride and exist if there is like long rain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Corbin?
I can, do you want to share my screen? I've got my list up of what I brought and it makes it easier to go through. And I'll just start talking through it. So like Maksym said, 2 pairs of stuff was really nice. So I'd have 2 pairs of bike shorts. One could be drying and the other one I could be wearing. I brought one pair of shorts to put over those. I brought 2 jackets, a puffy one and a other one, both lightweight. And again, this depends where you're going and what temperatures. Arizona, it was super hot and super cold. So it was snowing in some conditions, and was really happy with what I brought. Solar panel battery. I brought 2 bike jerseys, so one could be drying and one could be wet. Only 1 pair of underwear because I just wear it in the evenings and at night. 3 pairs of socks because socks were a big problem for me. I would get fungus in my toes, and it's just not fun. And so you want clean socks. And so having clean socks and clean feet were really essential for me. 1 light pair of pants I wear in the evening, long underwear bottoms, and long underwear shirt. And I would wear all these at night. It was cold. It was really cold. Our sleeping bags also depend on what you actually are going to need for clothing. So if you have a really cold weather sleeping bag, you probably don't need as much warm stuff. But we kind of had, or I had a lighter weight sleeping bag, which means I would wear my long underwear at night when it was really cold. It rained and snowed, so I had a rain jacket. I mentioned I had a puffy jacket. I had rain pants, fingerless gloves, helmet, hair tie, and other stuff for the other accessories I brought, like a spork knife, headlamp batteries, Advil, medical tape, spare tube, knee pads. So I did bring knee pads, and I did wear them, and I did scrape my knees once. I actually brought flip-flops because at night it was nice to put on flip-flops. And so that's a quick breakdown of what we brought, or what I brought.
Nice.
And again, depends on what you're doing and how long. AnSo?
Yeah, I have. I'm going to share my my own list. I'm not going to go through it. I just wanted to show you. I'm on there. Okay, just a sec. So share screen. Share screen. Share. So this is on my website. So for both Across Patagonia and Unigirl Kickouts, I went through everything and weigh everything to see where I could shave some weight and what I liked and what I didn't like. And everything is by, clothing, packing, like, if you're interested in checking what I've been using, it's there. And I think it really depends on where you're going, as it's been said. Like on the Alps, I didn't bring rain pants, and I'm really glad I didn't. And we were super lucky that it pretty much didn't rain. But in the Patagonia, it was essential. It rained so much. There was no way I was gonna be able to decide not to ride a day when it was raining. And of course, the longer you go, the more you need a little more, not a lot more, but because you're gonna go through a more diverse type of weather, and you can't just not decide to stop for that day. So that's all. I was trying to give you the link, but I don't know how to write on the comments of the YouTube, so I can't give you the link there.
So
Becky?
Yeah, so I also took rain pants and a rain jacket with me, because in Arizona it was very, very cold, and I was like expecting Arizona to be like sunny, hot, and how you were thinking about it. And Jamie was like warning me, bring your rain pants and your rain jacket, not just for the protection, but also because it can be very, very cold, and that helps with getting a bit warmer. And in Scotland, I of course also took them, but I was quite happy that I didn't needed to use them that much, that the weather was quite nice and not typical Scottish rainy all the day. And I also take like one clothes for the camp and sleeping, so that you have some cotton clothes that are more comfortable. Then I also take because I have to fly out again, and I'm like taking one normal one pair of normal clothes, like t-shirt and some lightweight long pants. And then I carry also a pullover to get some more warmth for in the camp, and also carried flip-flops because it's just nice to eat and don't walk barefoot, and they nearly weigh nothing. And then also, like, for every day I want to have a fresh new pair of socks, because in Arizona I had it like that when you use your socks like like 1 or 2 days, then you like get all the salt in your socks, and when you can't wash them, or when you don't wash them, then they start rubbing on your feet, and that's not nice at all. And I'm riding very hardcore without any padded shorts, so I didn't took padded, so I'm just like riding in some sport shorts, and that works for me perfectly. I'm sometimes for the warmth or to prevent rubbing, I'm wearing also some very tight fitting running shorts underneath, so that I have 2 layers so that it doesn't rub too much. And I also carry a hat for sleeping. That's very important, I think, because your hat loses a lot of energy in the night and warmth. And when you have a hat, you just way warmer. And in Arizona, it was freezing some nights, and you really needed to have a lot of clothes.
Nice. Souryan?
Yeah, true. So for my setup, I just have one set of day clothes that I use on the unicycle, and one set of night clothes that I use so to have dry clothes when I arrive at the place at night. And great tips I can share on the padded short is when it gets really when it hurts a lot, you can add a towel, like a dry towel that you just put on the saddle and just sit on the towel. It can help, like at the end of the day when you're really tired and it hurts a lot, you can just use this. So yeah, that's pretty. I try to keep it as simple as I can. Just have two sets of clothes.
Okay, interesting. So just also understanding yourself what is necessary. I know that I suffer the cold, so will bring for sure much warm stuff for me. Someone that have problem with the feet will bring more socks to change. But yes, that's pretty great. And it's running pretty long the time, so it's a lot we are going on. So I think we can switch on question and answer. If we can do 2 or 3 questions, and then
I also want to add something.
Yeah, sorry, Maksym.
I use the sleeping bag that is comfortable around +4, but I know that I will be sleeping in much colder degrees, much colder temperatures. So, but then I know that I have still a Primaloft pants and jacket. So I know that I can go be much below that what is in a sleeping bag. But I don't. On the other side, I don't want to take a much heavier sleeping bag that would keep me comfortable in colder. Yeah. So I use like on the limit. But in one camping, I got a problem because you have warm pants, you have warm jacket, you have this sleeping bag, but you don't have good socks. So I was really freezing in the foot. Yeah. So the only what I have to improve, that I have to buy the like down boots. Yeah, I can show you. This is kind of interesting. It's this, and this one weighs the pair weighs 75 grams.
Oh, for sure. Okay. With this, you keep your feet warm.
Yeah. So I'm solving the problem with always carrying one dry pair of woolen socks, and that works pretty nice. So for me.
And that night when I was freezing, I actually had to pull down my pants to cover my feet. Okay, so my belly was a bit or butt was in a colder area, but it was much easier for the body to keep warm the middle of the body than the feet. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, great. So if some of you have some questions, we have time. Like I think we can go ahead for 1 or 2 questions. Then since it's pretty long, and we're gonna for sure put on YouTube description and the website of Corbin and Sophie with all the information you have seen about the things bring with us and so on, and also on MuniChat we're gonna link the websites or like where you can find these people, because on Instagram, on Facebook, you can write to them, ask them all the questions you want. They will be sure able to help you in giving your tips for your trip and so on. So I think don't be scared. Let's see if someone is gonna write something.
But I have a question to Corbin, like all of us who is using the cycling shorts, yeah, because they have this padding. So if you plan to use one pair of it, will it dry after washing? So you know how to make, because you know this padding doesn't dry fast.
Yeah, I just wasn't gonna wash my cycling shorts.
Okay, for 30 days.
Yeah, but it might be too long. But I did bring 2 pairs in the Arizona Trail, and one of the things I had strongly considered was just bringing 1 pair, and I think I would have just brought 1 pair.
Okay.
I just don't use cycling shorts just to make it easier.
Oh God.
Same for me.
Yeah, it's just one less thing, one less weight, and yeah.
I can't ride without them. It doesn't work for me.
But also, you know, I think it also depends on the trails that we do. Like if you plan that you spend all day in the saddle, that's different. But if you have a lot of hiking, that makes a big difference, yeah, because then you rest your butt.
Okay, we have a question. Any comments about carrying first aid kit?
That's actually a very important question. I show you something. Wait. So I have 2 kits with me. One is a repair kit, which you can say first aid kit, but it say repair. And the other one is emergency. So if I have cuts or some, you know, the blood is running, I just use some small equipment from the repair kit. But in a very serious situation, when you cannot move, for example, or you're freezing, the biggest problem can be hypothermia. Yeah. So in this bag, there's my kind of PV bag that is, you know, made from the silver. So I can go inside, and also because I don't really carry the rain protection, in the really case that I need, I can use this bag. So that's kind of like a sleeping bag that you can sit inside, and it will protect me from the rain. And because I really travel very often, I travel alone to the very remote mountains. So this can save me in case I cannot move. So I can stay in this equipment for, I don't know, probably many days. And what I found on my first trip in Chile, I haven't got it, but then I found it's really necessary because, you know, there is no any phone coverage also in Arizona, I believe, yeah? So I have a personal locating beacon. Yep. So in case and I cannot move, then I can raise an alarm by pushing the button. That has word coverage.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about this, and I think it's an important one, is to have something like a spot, an inReach. The advantage of the inReach is that you can actually communicate. I guess maybe now the spots you can do that too. In the past, it was only the inReach, wherein you really need to. You can communicate if there's no cell phone coverage or anything. And also you can ask for help. I picked the inReach because in Patagonia at the time the spot wasn't covering that area, so you have to look a little bit into it. And just to go back to the first aid, I think it's like we don't have time to. It's hard to go into the details of what to use, but I did spend some time just like reading about people that know more than I do and what they recommend for those kind of trips. and picking a list and then making like something really small, but at the same time that has really whatever is essential. And I think for the first aid, it's really worth. I mean, there are tons of hikers doing that kind of thing, and they have them good list. And so, yeah, that's my recommendation.
Yeah, and the other thing that I'll add is so there were the 3 of us doing the trail, and only one of us needed to bring something. Jamie brought a spot because he owned one, and it could transmit a, hey, we're all okay once a day, or maybe we do it twice a day by hitting a button. And then there was an emergency, like, oh, something's not cool. And then there's a, hey, we need help right now. And so we used this, we didn't use the spot for any emergencies, but we had it there in case we did. And then Jamie also carried the medical supplies that we would need. And just because one of us was only needing to carry it. And so that's what we did.
Yeah, I also got a separate first aid kit that I was carrying. So, and Jamie was usually.
You brought a mirror too.
Be riding in the back.
Nice. Yes. Okay. Yes. No. I think that also the things that Maksym was showing, the light things to put over you that keep you warm.
Yeah, but I
first
dumped
aid
it after 2 weeks, I think. Yeah, but so what I wanted to say was that Jamie was riding in the back and carrying the spot device. So, and also my aim every day was like not to get behind Jamie because he was carrying this device. And so, yeah, and this mostly worked. So he was more the slowest one when we were riding. I was in the middle and Corbin was far ahead. Yeah.
Okay, pretty nice. I just want to add a small things that a first aid sheet, you know, the one that it's yellow and silver, that is something pretty useful. You can find also a way to like a sleeping bag, because once I was sleeping in a small hut in the mountain and I got super cold even with the backpack. I just put inside this first aid shelter, first aid sleeping bag sheet, and inside my sleeping bag, and that saved my life. So it's something really small, really light that can keep you warm when you need it. So I think we can go with the last question. It's about like, how big is your backpack? For who? I mean, and then I think we can go. So Maksym, I think you said.
Yeah, I already answered I use 44 liters Osprey Talon. It's not really the lightest backpack, quite light, and for me it's very important that it's very stable on the back, so it doesn't really move when you like move your torso. So there are much lighter backpacks on the market, like super light set packs or something, but I don't know how they behave when you really need to, when you shake your arms, when you ride on unicycle. I don't have, so I use a trusted brand Osprey that has very good stuff. Not the lightest on the market, but in this case, I prefer to have something that is very stable on my back.
Good.
Yeah, the Osprey, they're just really good around. I decided on my last trip to go on something lighter, and it worked. It wasn't as practical as something like an Osprey. Like I was finding sometimes hard to get my whatever I needed. It was a gossamer, so it's known to be really light. It worked. I was happy with it, but I decided not to keep it. So next time I go on a trip, I'll probably go for something else. I think also I didn't really like the look of it. I don't know. I want to be excited about my backpack. So yeah.
Nice. Corbin?
I can't even remember the model of backpack, but I know I think it was a 50 liter, if I recall. It was pretty big.
I think it was even bigger. 90, I think.
Yeah, maybe it was.
You
90.
made it smaller.
Yeah, it compacted down, but I like the ability to have a lot of space, and the weight difference wasn't too much for the capacity. So yeah.
Like my backpack was 500 grams, I think. So that starts to be really, yeah.
But for terms of weight, the backpack I was carrying with food and typical stuff was 22 pounds, so about 10 kilograms. The unicycle with the panniers, in my notes, it was about 32 pounds total without the Schlumpf hub. This is the regular one. So 32 pounds, that's about 15 kilograms. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I nearly was about the same weight. So I had like 10.5 kilograms. So 23 pounds around my backpack. And my unicycle was about, I think it was 30 pounds. So about 13 to 14 kilos. So we were, like Corbin and I were about the same weight, but he had more weight on his unis than I had.
Yep.
And I'm using a 50-liter backpack from Osprey. And what I really like about it is that it's, I don't know if you can see it, it has some straps on it, and you can strap a lot on it, and also heavy stuff. And we needed that for the Grand Canyon because we had to strap our whole equipment on our backpacks. And it was really, really useful to have some more space in the backpack, and also ways to attach something. And usually I don't use the 50 liters completely. I still have some space, but when you need it, it's very useful to have some more space.
Okay. Souryan?
So me, I use very basic Decathlon 40-liter backpack. And I also have the sleeping bag on the unicycle. So usually it's enough, but I think I will go for a bigger backpack if I have to take food for more than 1 or 2 days, because 40-liter can start to be a bit small. If you want to go on longer self-supported trips. But for technical trails, you really need to have the smallest backpack as possible. And I really have the worst setup, I think, because I have a very bad backpack and very bad gears. But I do with what I have.
Okay.
And it doesn't stop you from going. I think it's also when you spend too much time looking for the perfect gear, then you may not end up going on a trip. And so I think it's a good approach.
Yep. Use what you have. Yeah. Just use what you have. Don't buy stuff if you don't have to.
Great. So I think that it's now nearly 2 hours we're going on. So you gave a huge overview on what Munipacking trip. So I'm really thankful for this. So thank you very much for doing these things. And it was also the first time we do something like this in our community, I think. And so it kind of works. And let's see if in the future other interview like this or like sharing experience live, it's going to happen or not. So I want once again, thank you all of you. We're gonna put for sure on Facebook and maybe also and on YouTube too the link for the website, and you know where to find them. So thank you very much, and see you next time, and hopefully on the trail.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ettore and Maksym.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys, for organizing this.
Yeah, awesome. That was awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad we did it.
It's pretty great. Thank you.
We managed to that. Come on, we can wait 2 minutes and make it 2 hours.
Oh yeah.
As you want, Maksym, you are the master.
Yeah.
I think I have someone up there that needs some milk. So.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah.
Okay.
So I'm planning developing my Munipacking or kind of packing, whatever. And I'm actually have a recent plan that I'll buy a bicycle to make me more to make me possible that I can take more. You know, sometimes I cannot really carry 20 liters of water with me if I need.
No,
So
Maksym, you
I-
can speak about with the word with the two with a B. No. If you have
No,
more than
no,
one
no.
wheel, it's not
No,
allowed.
but it goes live now, and probably it will stay on the internet. But my plan is that I'll have a bicycle, but the front wheel will be unicycle. So I will be able to detach it, and then I can continue on my unicycle. So it's just the skipping the part when I need the car to access, you know. So I will not use the car anymore.
Okay, let us know.
It will be eco-friendly unicycling.
Okay. So
No, yeah.
now we got the 2
So I
hours.
end up the
Nice.
broadcast. So thank you very much, guys.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
for
Bye.
watching. Bye.
Yeah.